Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us again at our second panel discussion put on by the Ministry of Sport and Community Development. My name is Nicole Duke Westfield, and as I said, this is the second in our series of panels over the next few months as part of our Pink Rain campaign, and it's entitled You Go Girl. So, as you would have seen from the short video clip before, we are focusing on the issues and the information regarding women in the area of sport. Whether you are a weekend warrior like myself, a professional athlete, elite sport athlete, this is a conversation for you, and I'm so glad that you're able to join us. We're streaming live on Facebook on the Ministry of Sport and Community Development's Facebook page. So join, share the live, share the conversation so we can have a great packed discussion. As we had a couple of weeks ago, we are as we're into week 2 of the panel, and we have a great panel this week. I'm really excited to speak with these women. I had a conversation with them a few days ago, and it was really, it was eye-opening for me, and I know it was quite interesting for all of us on that call. The topic that we're looking at this afternoon is fostering a culture shift. And I know that sounds like a broad sort of area to get into, but there are some very key and critical issues with regard to that specific area that we want to talk about this afternoon. And I'd really like the opportunity, I take the opportunity at this time to introduce our 4 panelists this afternoon, 4 really accomplished women in their own right, and some really interesting athletes. So let's get right into it. We may be joined at some point in the call by the Minister of Sport and Community Development, Ms. Shamfa Cudjoe. She has a very packed agenda, as you all can all appreciate, but we're really hoping that she can join us just to say a few words. Hopefully we'll see her today. But let's get into the discussion. Let's get into the conversation. And I really would like to welcome our four panelists this afternoon, and I'd like to start by introducing Ms. Quanise John. Quanise is a former national rugby player, yes, I said rugby, and an educator who works tirelessly to increase the participation of girls and women in sport. In 2019, she was selected as one of the Ministry of Sport 40 under 40 influencers and the University of Trinidad and Tobago Sport Ambassador for her continued contributions to the development of sport, inspiring the next generation of athletes and administrators. Welcome, Quanise. Sherlyn Cabrales, our next panelist. She's a lecturer in sports management at the University of the West Indies and a decorated national hockey player and recognized coach who has played the sport extensively internationally and nationally. Rhonda Clark-Gordon is a senior instructor at the University of Trinidad and Tobago in the Center for Kinesiology, and we'll talk a little bit more about what that is, physical education and sport. She's a former beach volleyball club player, and Rhonda also works with the Elite Athlete Development Program for the sport of beach handball. And finally, and maybe the only member on our panel today who has not quite pursued a full career in sport, but who remains very much involved in sport, is Kelsey Toussaint Reed. Kelsey is a senior specialist engineer with the Division of Infrastructure, Quarries and the Environment in the Tobago House of Assembly. She's also participated competitively in track and field from the age of 15 until she was 22. And today she coaches track and field talent in Tobago at the school and club levels. Ladies, it is my ultimate pleasure to have a conversation with you all today. I'm looking forward to this discussion, as I'm sure our audience on Facebook are. And what I would like to indicate to folks now is that we will have the opportunity during the course of the event, of our conversation. If you do have questions, please send them in on the Facebook Live. We will be taking questions during the panel, but I'd like to really kind of get right into the conversation. We talk about fostering a culture shift, and as I said, it does sound like a broad area, but maybe if we can narrow it down for our viewers and listeners. And Kelsey, I'd like to kind of start with you, take it right across to you, and just to talk a little bit about your experience as a young girl setting out in track. I know you started around the age of 15, which for some might be a bit late, but given your experiences and what we talked about, I think there's some stories that you can share with us. So maybe we can talk about your experience and then we can take it further into discussion with the other women.
Okay, good afternoon to everyone listening and my fellow students. As any child going into high school, you participate in sports, but everything's organized. For me, it would be like playing on the playground, running on the streets with your cousins and your friends. When I got into high school, Bishop's High School, every first former has to take part in or participate in what we call cross country. And came second, and everybody was like, "Well, this little girl could run." At the time, I was really, really nashy and thing, in our Tobago term, right? And so from then, whenever we had school sports, they would always put me into these long races, the 1500s, the 800s. But that was the extent of my participation in track. There was no training or anything like that. And when I got to third form, right when we were getting ready to go down to Trinidad for Intercol, my father passed away. And so I could not, take the journey with the entire Tobago contingent. Instead, I went down a day or two later. The person who took me down was then one of the coaches of Zenith Athletic Club, right? To be honest, I did not perform well. I mean, given the circumstances, it was expected. But he said to me, if you really want to take this thing seriously, my brother and I, we could help you out. At the time, you're angry, you're upset, you lost a parent, and I really needed something else to focus on, to take away that hurt. And the Franklin brothers really took me under their wings at the time, and that's where I really started training, for track and field. But there were a lot of things happening in the background that didn't really help that, right? My mom, being a single parent at the time, she just had a baby as well. She wasn't working anywhere. And, to help, she couldn't financially support me in track and field at the time. So, once again, the club stepped in to help. My PE teachers at Bishop stepped in to help, and my community outside of those two places at home and my extended family, they really stepped in to be that support system that I needed. At the same time, while all of this was happening, I was actually changing, my body was changing. And so now when I went into Zenith, I couldn't run the long road, and we had to shift our focus to shorter races and that kind of thing. But when I got to fifth form, my mother was like, it's exam time. We have to focus on the books. So track and field actually took a back seat at that time. But after exams and the results came out, and she was like, I did well enough. She was like, no, and I quote, them fine foot had to take you out of here, right? And I, that year, in that first year of A levels, we really focused on, getting my times up, getting my education up, and I was fortunate enough to get a scholarship out of Trinidad and Tobago to the US at Southern Illinois University. I mean, that transition was a little tough because you go from a place, Tobago, where everybody's close, and then you end up in a situation where there's nobody to count on. There's no crutch basically to help you transition from Tobago to America. But my friends and my head coach at the time, I think they understood that, and they actually became the family for me at that junction, And when we had breaks, they took me to their homes and that kind of thing, so I didn't feel left out or lonely in any regard.
Yeah. And thank you for that. Thank you for that, Kelsey. And because I think you, in that story, thank you for sharing your story. You've pointed to a lot of issues with respect to how do we what we experience, what young women, what girls, young women experience in sport, and how do we, some of the issues that we need to look at seriously in fostering if we want to achieve that cultural shift that we talk about. For example, the support systems and whether those support systems are effectively in place. As a woman, as a girl changes, as her body changes, those physical changes, who is there or how can we, what are the systems that are helping the young girl transition? I think some of those issues, even the concept of girls need to focus on education. That is probably an age-old story across Trinidad and Tobago, and it's not unique to Trinidad and Tobago as a matter of fact. But girls need to focus on education. So the extent to which you play sport is your education is not compromised. So as we look at some of those issues, Sherlyn, I know that you have, as someone playing hockey, as a coach, as someone still involved in sport and sport management and sport education, how do you respond to some of those issues that Kelsey would have identified?
It's across the board. The same issue comes up all the time when it comes to challenges that women face in sport. And I was just feeling a couple of, it's very important for us to look at some real data in a sense. There are two students from did some research. One did some research on tracking referees in football, and another one just looked at retaining female athletes. And the results that they got from their research actually correlates with what happens throughout the world. So let me just look at specifically what they found out. Referee research, and this is from this. Her name is Bramble. Miss Bramble. He's a referee actually. So he interacts with very high performance type athletes as well as officials. So from her research, she identified 4 major challenges, and that would be time management, and we could all identify with that. That pretty much is about managing family life, work-life balance. So that was one of the major challenges for women. The other thing is the physical demand. As a high-performance athlete and a high-performance official, the demand on training and acquiring certain fitness level while you're trying to balance your life is really a major challenge. And so you need the support system to assist you in that area. The other thing that was identified was inadequate facilities. So you'd find that a referee would have to referee a match somewhere in some rural area, and the facility itself, the bathroom facility, is locked or it's not adequate enough. So she would have to dress in her car. That is unacceptable. The other thing that she identified in her research was that there was a lack of respect and acceptance from other referees, and especially when she would have to do male games, you'd find that the spectators as well as the players would want to say that they're not good enough. So why they're here? So those were some of the challenges that she got out of her research. And then I had another student who is Daniela Martin. She was actually looking at club and hockey and various sports and see why do female athletes stop playing. And she herself came up with something that correlates with what's outside as well. She identified that motherhood was keeping people away from sport. So that was one of the major challenges. The other thing was really balancing life with education as well, academics as well as playing. So that whole work-life balance, again, come up. There was a lack of support. And when she identified lack of support, she was looking at the national governing body. She identified that, but we can expand that with lack of support, maybe from your parents, lack of support from your club. So the support needs to come in. And as the young lady just mentioned, you need support. You need support to allow young ladies to strive in their choice of sport. The other thing that she also identified was that, just now I just lose my thing. I wrote it down so I wouldn't miss anything. Lack of exposure, and that is key. Lack of exposure really suits and really support the whole, as it relates to role model. If we do not get exposure for our athletes, and not only our athletes, because I I really feel that we focus on athletes more than the other people who are involved in sports, the administrators, the officials. We need to give them their 50 minutes of fame so that young ladies could see themselves not only as a Michelle Ai or Cleopatra Burrell, but really, hey, I'll call myself like a Shirley Cabral, right? and just and just to add, and the other thing that we have to, what is also a challenge, and as it relates to women in sport, is looking at safety and transportation. And we have to emphasize that, because now more than ever, it is very difficult to expect young ladies to travel from Arima to Port of Spain to practice. I did that myself and my sister and my friend when we started playing hockey. We had to take public transportation to Port of Spain, drop off by the bus stop, walk to the savannah, practice, walk back, take transport home. How many parents are actually going to do that? So you need a form of support from that perspective. So those challenges are real challenges. Those are challenges that will identify specific to Trinidad, but it's also the same challenges that you see in other research outside of Trinidad as it relates to women. So it's a real issue as when it comes to exploitation of women. So we really need to come up with creative ways of tracking. One, and I will add one more thing, just not to talk forever, is the quality of the product. The quality. What are you offering young ladies to encourage them to participate? Are you most of the time you'd find that, and I don't like to generalize it, because from an academic perspective, you need to have solid backing to what you're saying. That's the reason why I quoted those two student research. But when you look at the quality of the product, that women specifically look for certain quality. If I'm going to send my daughter to play a particular sport, I want to know consistency. I want to know the people who's actually teaching my daughter knows what he or she is doing, that she feels safe. So that would be it. I will stop right there so I could give other people an opportunity to add value. My overall comment relates to that particular question.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Shailen, because I think you've really hit on some critical points in terms of the support. Looking at that it's not entirely about the athlete. Yes, we're talking about women in sport, but women in sport means a whole lot of different things. When you look at even your own role, for example, as an educator yourself, Rhonda, Quaniz, and the different roles that you all play, coaches, educators, these things are critical as well in terms of helping young women to understand the world that is offered to them, so that it's not just about playing the sport. Rhonda, I want to bring you in on the conversation. I know that you have you have some particular views in terms of how this plays out, given your own experience as a young woman playing sport, and even as you continue to support athletes at the elite level today. So maybe you can chime in on some of the things that Kelsey and Shailen have raised.
All right. Just hello to everyone on the panel. Nice to be here. Happy to have the opportunity. In addition to the support role, which is critical for a young woman, it goes hand in hand with opportunity. If opportunity is not provided, then having that desire to want to go out to participate in sport would quickly be diminished because of that lack of support. So it kind of goes hand in hand. A lot of the times, young women in specific areas in the country that are not provided with an opportunity. They have the desire, they have the passion, they have the skill to participate or to actually go out and play and do well, but not having that opportunity. And another thing too that kind of along with it is not only parental support, but also community support, because we have a lot of young women in rural communities that, because of being in a home that would have brought you up with a certain type of cultural background, you don't have that type of support that would actually want to push you to get into the sporting arena. Because, just as you had said before, girls should concentrate on their education. That is a mantra that is familiar to a lot of girls. It was something that was in my household for years. Focus on your education. So even though you want to play and you want to be a part of a team and actually participate in sports, it is something that is not considered really adequate or socially right. As a female, it's best if you forget about that. It is best if if you don't go outside and play, stay inside, study your work, pick up a book, or come and learn how to do some type of housework or something like that. And this speaks specifically to people that come from rural communities. So the opportunity being provided, you'll find that a lot of women, a lot of girls in these areas are not able to actually pursue sport or actually fulfill a heart's desire because they don't have that opportunity. And it all ties in with what Shalon would have said just now with regards to lack of proper facilities. What is the final product that we are trying to push out there? If we don't afford the opportunity, then it becomes null and void in my view, in terms of having, yes, you would be in a home that may have that type of support, but then what? You would only reach as far as you could reach with regards to maybe participating in a secondary school, playing for your secondary school, and that's it, because of that lack of opportunity.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I completely agree and understand where you're coming from. Quanies, I think that Rhonda, Kelsey, and Sherlyn have touched on some really critical discussion points. I know you have your own experiences, and certainly when we talk about some of those myths about women performing in sport or young girls participating in sport, I know you can speak to some of those yourself, as well as some of the work that you are doing now to encourage women in sport. We know about issues of, for example, in sport, where even in some of our communities to this day, girls who are fairer skin or lighter skin are discouraged from participating in sport or being out in the sun, quote unquote. That they see certain sporting activities to be difficult for them, or it's not for girls, it's not for dainty girls because it's not special. So some of those things, if you could speak to those, Quanies, in terms of your own experience, I'll let you go.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me, and hello everyone who's joined us on the live. Speaking from my experience, I come from a background of sporting persons. Everybody in my family played sport. The girls played netball, and I'm the only one who played this male-dominated sport, rugby. And I would say that they were just happy that I got involved in something, and I was happy myself with with choosing rugby. Um, for me, and encouraging more girls in sport is really about understanding what the girls want to achieve, whether it's just fitness, whether it's elite, whether they have elite goals or not, and creating an environment both internally, which is at the session, as well as understanding the external environment and helping them navigate that space. Because as a young athlete, because I started at 15 as well, as a young athlete, I I had older girls to say, okay, this is what it's going to feel like. And this is what is going to happen. And I think that conversation is important when girls join sport, because we have to prepare them for prepare them for the backlash, so to say, for joining sport. and being and pursue and wanting to pursue sport. So you're going to get the boy saying, "Oh, do you play that man sport?" Yes, I play that man sport, and you just carry on, and just helping them mentally prepare for that. And I think from my background and involvement in rugby, that happened. I think as well is that administrators and coaches have to understand where these girls are coming from, and again focus on creating an environment which helps them feel safe to share that this is what is happening in my background so that you can assist them. Sometimes you might go to a coaching environment, and the coach is so focused on achieving their goals, they surely overlook your goals as an athlete. You get high dropout rate because it's no longer fun. There are some women who don't want to go that track of elite athlete or scholarship or these things. And we have to create an environment for them to continue playing sport and not be despondent because we hear the term she too lazy or this or that, she had two left foot, she have no coordination. All these different things have a really no serious. These things have an impact on whether girls continue to play sport. And I think for most of I had a female coach for most of my playing career. And later down in my playing career, I had a male coach. And I think it is the onus of administrators to understand the female athletes, to be honest. When I started the Girls League, which is the Trinidad and Tobago Schools Girls League, it's a small league. It's a small league, but we didn't have enough female coaches. And it started off as a project at UTT whilst I was doing my degree. And as a student, you're encouraged to be on the ground. You don't just design something and leave it, right? Go to the sessions. So I went to the sessions where the guys were coaching, and I realized there's a huge disconnect. The male coaches just don't understand. They could I think they could be compassionate, but they couldn't empathize. So I had to go back and then for a few years, introduce how to coach women, understanding female motivation, understanding these different intricacies of coaching females, which is different, very, very different from coaching the male athlete. And I think those are some of the things that we have to look at when we designing programs for girls and being intentional about that design, so that
Yeah.
we create pathways for participation, and we create our recreation weekend warriors, and we create a pathway for our elite athletes and persons who want to achieve more.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Certainly, I think some really interesting points. I believe we are joined now by the Minister of Sport and Community Development, Minister Shamfa Kujur. Minister, we're really glad that you could have joined us. I know how busy your schedule is, so I will just take it over to you just for a few moments so you can give us some remarks and maybe even share some thoughts based on what you've heard already. Minister? Minister, I'm not sure, you may be on mute, so you can check your mute button. Perfect, lovely. Welcome again.
Okay, thank you very much. Happy good afternoon to one and all, and I want to thank all the panelists, everybody who's tuned in for logging on and really being a part of this initiative. We in the Ministry of Sport and Community Development, we have been trying to really materialize and bring to the fore this issue and this program for such a long time. We first launched Pink Rain campaign in October of 2019, right before the whole COVID situation at the old Ministry of Sport, at the former Ministry of Sport and Youth. But we moved to the new ministry now, Sport and Community Development, and we are really working on getting sport, using sport as a tool to transform our community. Inclusion is so very important in the work that we do, and we know based on our history, based on looking at all different disciplines of sport, that girls tend to drop off or fall out of their sporting programs from a very young age, oftentimes when they're approaching puberty. And when I came on board, I saw the TTOC doing tremendous work in their Future is Female campaign. And we know what our commitments are as it relates to the Brighton Declaration. So here we are, the Ministry of Sport and Community Development, doing a little bit to try to promote the participation of women and girls in physical activity, in sport, and all things sport, all areas of sport, not just getting out there and being an athlete, but also serving on the board, being coaches, being administrators, being decision makers, and influencing the process so that we could really change the whole situation as it relates to getting women and girls truly involved in sport, not struggling, not just surviving, but really thriving in the area of sport. So I'm pleased that the Ministry of Sport and Community Development, or Sport Division, have been able to work alongside the communications unit and all the other relevant bodies. We've had consultation with the stakeholders, and we have so many different NGBs and athletes who have come on board to assist us in this regard. So I'm really, really pleased to see us really make this happen during this time when we are transitioning to doing just about everything virtual. Happy to see us doing this comfortably from our homes and getting the message out there, because that is what is important, to save a girl's life, to save her mental health, and to advance the development of each and every sporting discipline, giving every young girl, every woman a really fair chance and opportunity to get involved, get out there and play, and not just play, but influence the decision-making process and to lead. So a couple of weeks ago, I think it was May 12th, we had our first panel discussion, and we had Zumila Charles, Dr. Diane Mitchell, and Jessica James, and they really came in and put down some good work in bringing this matter as it relates to the importance of physical fitness and women and girls' involvement in sport, non-communicable diseases, physical and mental health, and so on. So today I had the opportunity to jump in a little late because I'm doing another meeting, a sub-cabinet meeting, but I just really wanted to come in and say thank you to our panelists as we look on a really, as we weigh in on a really sensitive matter, which is changing the culture, fostering a culture shift. I'm glad that I came in at the point where Quanise was talking about having the experience and recognizing that something needs to be done that caters directly and particularly to girls and to women. So this is a very important conversation where I'm from, and in some rural communities, there is a belief that when it's time for the young lady to have her menstrual cycle, that, okay, you're becoming a woman and you shouldn't be involved in a man's game. And they see sport as a man's game. In certain households, parents believe that the boys should go out and play while the girls stay inside and do home domestic related things. And even in our schools, where the principals and teachers are responsible for leading the charge and promoting involvement and participation in sport at the school level, many of our decision makers are not too passionate, or they don't really support the whole idea of the student athlete and sport being for boys and girls, and learning how to alter the programs and the curriculum and the system within the school in order to facilitate the student athlete. And there are some people who believe that if you're not doing well in academics, then you could go be an athlete. And we really want to show where you can thrive and you can excel in athletics and in sport and also thrive and excel as a student. A matter of fact, I think a better student is a student athlete. So that's another conversation. But ladies, and if we have some gentlemen locked in, there is room under the sun for all of us to shine, for all of us to bloom, for girls and boys to bloom and to excel in sport. And we really want to look at every single area, from the importance of providing safe spaces for girls to practice, safe transportation for them to get back home after practice, the importance of women getting to the level of management and leadership in their sporting disciplines and in their clubs, and making room for other women to get on board, the importance of having the proper facilities to ensure that girls could change in peace and they're safe and they're secure. There are so many different elements, but at the end of the day, it starts with each and every one of us. We all have a role to play, from the government to the education system to parents, you name it. And we have to speak into our young women that they can do it too, that this is their game too, this is their business too, and they should get involved. So there's so much to be said, and I promise that this subject matter would go beyond today's discussion as we come to you month after month weighing in on this topic. So I want to let you know that the Ministry of Sport and Community Development, we are serious about getting everybody involved, balancing the scale and total participation in sport for everyone. So as I close, I want to invite all of you to just tune in. I hope that we have fruitful discussion and that this campaign turns out to be a very successful one. I want to thank all the panelists today for accepting our invitation to participate. Invite more, bring more women on board, and make it a really powerful and transformational initiative. So I thank you, and I wish you a productive afternoon. I want to just really wish everyone the very best in these discussions and these engagements. And even as we are at home and unable to really get out there and play in the way that we would like, let's start thinking about inclusiveness and getting more girls on board and seeing how women could really get involved and influence the process, so that when we could really get out there and play once again, women would be front and center, and we could say we have an equal place as it relates to sport in Trinidad and Tobago. So thank you very much. May God bless you. May God bless our nation. And please excuse me for having to run off right now. I have to head back to my I have to actually head off to another quick meeting where we're handing over the check to the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee to get athletes ready to head out to Tokyo for participation in this year's Olympics. So to everyone on the panel, to Ms. Nicole Duke Westfield, Ms. Rhonda Clark Godson, Mrs. Kelsey Toussaint Reed, Ms. Sherlyn Cabrales, and Ms. Corniche John, everybody tuned in, everybody locked in. Thank you, thank you, thank you from the bottom of my heart. May God bless you. May God bless our nation. Take care.
Thank you, Minister. I could not have said it better myself. I think it was a wonderful interjection at this point in terms of what we are talking about, some of the things we already covered. The Minister put some really great brackets around the conversation. Thank you very much for that. And yes, please go off and make that donation to the TTOC so we can have a great showing at the upcoming Olympics. So thank you for that as well, on behalf of the Trinidadians and Tobagonians watching on. Let's get back into the conversation, ladies. I know we were at a great point where Quanice had talked about some of the things that she had been involved in and her experiences in rugby. The Minister spoke to some of the issues in terms of how do we actually make this shift, fostering a culture shift. How do we actually make that? One of the areas that she pointed to was in terms of our administration and specifically our school system, where we know a lot of young girls, boys and girls, that's where they sort of get their start in sport. sometimes the school system, the way the curriculum is developed, the way the programs are developed, may not necessarily be encouraging or entirely supporting for the different reasons, to make sure that girls in particular stay with sport. Is that a place that we can look at in terms of a start, and as we make that shift, and then maybe some of the, what are some of the things that we can do? Kelsey, I want to turn it to you, and maybe then take it across to to the other panelists so that they can go in. Kelsey?
Right. So this is kind of very dear to my heart, right? Because when I like unlike the others, I did not really pursue a career in sport. I came out, I was an engineer, and that's where I stayed for a while. But there was one time I went to my daughter's primary school to do something, and there were some girls that had to do something for brownies, and they had to skip 10 times consecutively, and they couldn't do it, right? And from since that day, I kind of ended up in that school, helping them with a lot of things. And these are things that we should be able to do normally, because those are physical, literally skills that we should be able to do without somebody teaching us that, right? And this is what kind of drove me into coaching now, right? And I made it. I did it in such a way that I work with the younger children, because that's where it has to begin, right? And um, I wanted to provide an environment where they get into it and it's fun at the same time. It's not about competition. Sometimes the parents feel a little bit safer sending them to a female coach, because then I guess they understand it's not always about competition. It's about just being active. It's about being healthy. And if we start it that way, then they can go on and maybe branch off into it as a, like I said, eliteness and that kind of thing. But it has to start where we have people who not are just willing or volunteering to do it, but know why they're doing it, and it has to be athlete centered, as Connie said. It's not about me. It's not about the parents. It's about the athletes and keeping them motivated and happy in a space where they can go.
I quite agree, and I understand exactly where you're coming from. Having as a parent myself and seeing my son and my nephews who are involved in sport, and really starting through the school system. Sherlan, I know you supported young people, you supported your own nieces and nephews through their journey in sport, playing hockey as a coach. You work with young people. What are maybe some of your thoughts from that, from the perspective of what the school system or maybe administration, provides or can provide to assist girls in sport?
Okay. All right. So let me just say straight up and very blunt, we talk too much. It's a lot of talk with no action. And we have to be action oriented. So we talk about the school system, and primary schools still don't have physical education teachers. It is physical education is taught by some teachers. All the teachers have to do that. This is a skill. This is a profession. All primary schools should have 2 or 3 physical education. It should be mandatory, and that is the foundation for the development of sport and for keeping our population healthy. When we move from the primary school education, we need to go to secondary school. And again, we need not just 1 or 2 physical education teachers. We need qualified coaches. We need to give students opportunities to participate in sport. Yes, we may not be able to cater to every sport that is available, but they should have a couple of choices. And we can do that, because we talk about it all the time. Why can't we do that? Why we have education program for certifying physical education teachers. We have program for sports management majors that could manage sport in schools, be it primary or secondary school. We have the human resources. What we don't have, what I think, and I'm being very strict, we don't have the will. We need to have the will to do, because we talk and we talk and we talk and we don't do. We need to do. We have the we. I just going to say we have the human resources. And if we don't build the foundation, we will keep talking about what we need to do, be it male or female. If we get young people involved in sport from a primary level, parents will recognize the benefits of their little young one participating in sport, not only from a health perspective, but it's also team building, being able to win and lose, being able to compete, being able to just enjoy things. So stop talking. Let's do. Let's do. That's my spiel.
I hear you. And the thing is, we are going to continue talking, but I understand exactly where you're coming from when you say that. You know, as a parent, and I think a lot of us can identify. A lot of people who are watching now and listening now can identify with the fact that the reality is that a lot of the schools that can afford, you see them participating. They have the teams,
Yes.
they can bring on a coach, and the parent teacher association or the school funding program is able to pay. The schools that are not so lucky, not assisted by any board or denominational group, or have a strong PTA going for them, those are the schools that really struggle. And sometimes it's painful because you see, and I think, and Rhonda pointed to this, sometimes these are the schools where they have this immense talent just waiting to burst, and we just are not able to tap into it. So I very much understand where you're coming from. Yeah, no, I think that, you know, we do have to sometimes call it out for what it is and say, listen, we need that. And I'm glad that you pointed to the fact that we have the resources to be able to supply or to be able to inform the talent that we require. Rhonda, I'm turning it over to you because you talked about this very early on, and then based on what Sherlyn and Kelsey has already alluded to, the training that is necessary. Juanice talked about having, sometimes you really do need coaches. Maybe it's female coaches, more female coaches who can work with young women who understand what the body is going through, who understand the growing up process and the development process. How do you see that? I mean, you're working with athletes at an elite level now, but you've gone through the system and that process. Can you speak to some of those things?
I truly believe that the foundation for this would be, yes, we're talking about education and going back into the schools and getting persons involved from the primary level. But what about fostering a shift in mindset with regards to adopting physical activity as something that is cultural, in terms of let this become a habit? If it is that we start this off at that level, fostering that habit of the importance of physical activity, why we should be moving, why as girls specifically we should be active and stay active and remain active. How do we transition from getting up to puberty, getting into that arena past puberty? What are the benefits? What are the things that can be done to assist us? What are the facilities employed to help us to transition? So that way, if we help to foster that change and shift in mindset, then coaches that are coming in to work with these young ladies would be educated and understand that, okay, when I'm dealing with males, it's a different dynamic. When I'm dealing with females, it's a different dynamic. Yet still across the board, both males and females, we can play sport. It's not a case where, because look at Quanice, for example, being in a male-dominated sport, but still managing to excel beyond her limitations. And that is what we need to do. We need to channel the education process to shift how we view it. Because if we always look at physical activity as nothing as important, so for example, PE in secondary school, I remember my PE teacher used to tell me, we taking the boys outside to go and play cricket. All the girls could go in the lab. All the girls could go and sit down in the Spanish lab and do something different. It doesn't make sense when they come out here because, you know, we want to play and we want to have a team going and we want to, you know. So that is something that is critical if it is that we are able to infiltrate those systems and shift the mindset of people with regards to putting on that view that physical activity, sport is important, then we can be able to help coaches and those administrators and persons who are in that authority to actually push the correct type of training and methodologies that should be employed when dealing with women and girls specifically.
Yes, yeah, Rhonda, thanks for that. And I think a lot of people can identify with maybe that experience that you shared. Hopefully, it is not as prevalent as it is now, as it was then, I should
I
say.
hope not.
But I think, but I think a lot of people can, as young women, I think we all had, different ways that kind of experience. One of the comments that has come up on our Facebook feed is the question of the Paralympic sport and sport, across the board. So it's not just about the full sport or the full Olympic level. We're talking about sports at different levels. So for that group as well, and I think the question of do we have the quality level coaching that can carry
No, we do not.
across the different levels? Okay. No, don't stop there.
We do not.
hear
We
more.
do not. We do not have the quality in terms of coaches to deal with that particular population of athletes. We do not. Because a lot of times, especially from the school system, a little bit. And from coming from the school system, we can see where a lot of teachers are not able to identify students that have certain types of special needs and disabilities. And we tend to palm off those students into the regular classroom. We don't want to deal with it because we don't understand how to deal with it. Moving along with regards to coaches specifically dealing with that type of population, they do not know how to physically handle those types of athletes, how to mentally deal with those types of athletes. And you find a lot of times that coaches, they group the athletes. Because you have a special need or you have a particular disability, let me put you under the regular coach that is dealing with the elite athletes, and they can deal with you because that is the sport that they are dealing with, not understanding the cognitive issues that they have to deal with, right? Not only the physical issues, but also the specific needs that these athletes need. They need certain types of facilities. They need certain type of mental support, and they don't get it. And we could say, yes, we are sending coaches to get certified. Let me get a level 1 coaching certification or a level 2 or whatever have you in coaching persons for Paralympics. But then at the end of the day, because of the way we are made up in this country, specifically where we don't like to deal with something that is unusual or something that is different, we tend to palm them off and put them into the hands of somebody who does not know how to deal with them specifically. Sorry to sound so passionate about it, but it is the truth.
No, don't apologize at all. As you point to this conversation. Don't. Please don't apologize. Sherlyn, I saw your eyes moving, your hands moving, your mouth, everything. So let me hear you.
No, I understand. This is where go back with when Rhonda was saying that, it needs to be a cult in the sense that we need to focus on physical activity as part of your lifestyle. I always say it's your lifestyle. As an athlete, that was my lifestyle. It was easy for me to get up 4 o'clock in the morning to go and run, to exercise, to do my thing because it was my life. So how do we change the lifestyle? And that's the reason why I added the primary schools, because you're influencing from a young age, and then it becomes a lifestyle. What I want to add to that is that we need to utilize the media. Those are people that drive policies and influence. They're the advocates and influencer of what we do. Regardless of how independent thinker you are, the media have a very powerful role. So how do we utilize the media to show that we need to engage children to be active? We need children in order to be able to have a balanced life. We need to utilize the media a little more effectively. And
Yes.
where does that come from? All the players in the game, and which is, I mean, little Daniela Martin, she really hit that one home by exposure through the media will always assist in making a young lady feel that she's important. That's why social media is so popular. Everybody's a star on social media. I'm a TikTok fan, which, I mean, at my age, you say, what is this? But on TikTok, anybody can be a superstar. And so
Yes.
I look at that as this is why they gravitate to these things, want that attention. They want to be able to share what they have to offer. So how can we, same thing as Rhonda is saying, we need to have that culture shift, and we can utilize the media, utilize the various platforms to give visibility to young women doing positive things with themselves, because the negative thing that's come
Yes.
out, that's we always quick to share those
Yeah.
nonsense, but
Yeah.
we're not quick to share the positivity. We have to manage that. We need to promote more of that, and we will see the shift, because I'm telling you, I'm queen of TikTok. Although I'm not on TikTok, I see the power of that platform that gives people so much opportunity to express themselves. So we have to control the narrative by managing the media and sharing the information. So that's my thing. Juanice, I know you have something to say. You already say
Yeah, I
age
was not.
now.
I was not going to say. I was not going to
I
take it
know.
over to her.
The thing about it, I wanted to bring it back to. Oh yeah, because I wanted to bring it back to the individual belief system. Because if the person
Right.
do not believe that they can be physically active, then they won't be physically active. If you
Yes.
speak to me, okay, if I identify as a lifestyle athlete, what does that mean? Does that mean that I have to get up every day and join the 5 a.m. club? That might be throwing me off. Like, I'm not a morning
Yes.
person. What are you talking about 5 a.m. workouts? Right? So again, we have to meet people where they are and understanding where they are, then we could help them move towards help them identify where they want to be and why they want to be there, and therefore create systems to support that new belief system. And I think media has a role to play in that, because when I started off, um, you look like a man was an 8-year old told me that. I was 18 at the time, and an 8-year old told me I look like a man. And I was like, well, yeah, because I need to be strong for my sport. As opposed to being offended by her point of view, I choose the avenue to educate her and help her
Yes.
understand that, you could be strong too, and this is why you need to be strong. And I think once we get them to understand that and reach them where they are, and not necessarily disregard their upbringing, but again, show them a different path, use the media, strong is the new sexy, so to say. And,
Yep.
how can we, in our sport, use those messages that they're so familiar with externally to help them see that in themselves? And I think only
Yes.
when we do that, we'll be able to not necessarily come from an environment where we're forcing people to be physically active, but it's a choice because they see the benefits for themselves. They experience any benefits
Yeah.
for themselves. And I think that's why it's important to have different streams of different pathways for athletes. And this
Yeah.
this is informed by the long-term athlete development model, where stages 1 to 3 is just about movement and fun, and then you create an environment where you help them see themselves as elite athletes. But if they don't see themselves at elite athlete level, they still have the opportunity to see themselves as the weekend warrior.
Yeah.
They still
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
something
And
to
and I,
identify with, to be physically active and believe, yes, I could do that. I am going to participate. And I really like the Run Trinbago series. You know, why we can't have something like that in hockey, or have something like that in rugby or handball or athletics, where it's not just this is the pathway for you to become a national athlete. Not everybody, 1%, you
Yeah.
know, what about the
Yeah. Yeah.
99? We have to cater for the
Yeah.
99
Yeah.
as sports. Yeah.
Yeah, they're very critical. And I think that as you speak to the question of the media is also important for exploding a lot of those stereotypes. That you look
Yeah.
like a man, you're going to get dark in the sun if you spend too long playing the sport,
Yes.
girls should be inside, boys should be outside. I mean, we know them. You know, it's no secret. I think the breaking those stereotypes, busting those myths are very, very, very critical. Another one that I want to point to is, and Kelsey, I want to bring you in here. Um, you become a mother at whatever age in your life, and there is this understanding or the belief that your life in sport ends. You know, I think Shelly Ann Fraser Price exploded that, and she's operating at the tippy top level. So it really, you know, she's just one example. There's so many more. But as a woman, you know, and now you're into motherhood, can you take your child with you when you go to the court? Can you take your child with you when you go to the playing field? And what systems and support are there for you when you do that?
Well, you know, Alison Felix is my, you know, she's my role model when it comes to that because, you know, she had her daughter and it wasn't really even under the best
Yes.
circumstances. And you know, she came back and she's still at the top of her game, right? And it's always so hard for female athletes. And I have this example of a teammate in college. She got pregnant, lost her scholarship, but the father was also on scholarship and nothing happened to him. No, so it's really unfair in that aspect. But for me, transitioning from track and field, I went into netball with Blazers Netball Club. And I could tell you, we are all 99% mothers, right? And our daughters are, our children are always present when we have games, when we have training, because the support system now becomes our teammates, right? So when I have to be on the court, I have maybe from a different team, the junior team, they're there to make sure that the children are safe. And it's good for the children to see their parents, their mothers. Most people aren't very active, right? Because most of us are in the bracket of 25 to 40 years. And, you know, it's good for even the younger girls coming up because some of us are mentors to high school or even have clubs that they coach and train. And it's good for the girls to see that, you know, even after your netball career, you could still be active because, you know, exercising is a life thing and it's easier to transition from eliteness or competition into active for life once you stay in it, once it's something you like. Um, having, you know, I have three children, and if it wasn't for COVID, we would be actually in netball season right now, and I bet you they would be on the court when I have a game. The husband is there, you know, he comes sometimes, but I mean, my teammates are very generous in keeping the kids while we have games. So it's good. If I mean, if you are a national athlete, so it's on the NGB or the ministry to have this kind of support system because they can't tell me that, you know, I have to be at training and there's nothing in place for my children while I'm at training because as a mother, your children becomes your first priority. And if I have to sacrifice them to be at training, it's not fair to me as a woman, right? So these are the kind of things that female athletes go through, and we can't just say it's up to you to find the solution. It has to be, you know, it has to be a community effort to solve that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I want to bring in I actually do want to bring in a bit of the conversation, looking at the sporting bodies and and the administrative bodies in terms of their role in supporting our young female athletes, our young girls in sport, our professional athletes as well, elite athletes. Sherlyn, how do you see that role evolving? How do you see that? What is the importance there in terms of the mandate that they need to take up, and some of the things that we have already discussed, and how do you see that role evolving?
Okay. So blinking my eye because it's as far as the NSOs are concerned, they have identified objectives. They all have objective that speaks to everything that we're talking about right there. They just need to fulfill the objective that they identify, which means supporting the athletes. And we're talking about female athlete. You need to understand what female athletes need because it is different from male athletes. So coming from Kwanisa, just adding, because she's absolutely right, as opposed to focus on the 1%. The high performance athletes are the 1%, if you forget the 99%. So those 99%, understanding why they participate in a particular sport is what will guide the administrators to know what is required or what they need. Because if I know why you're there, so if it's just weekend warrior, because my friend playing, or come because some nice boy playing hockey, so I want to get close, because these are all the reasons, then we will know what we need to cater for. So, and going from the NGBOs have to learn from clubs, right? The clubs, I'm from Malvern Sports Club, and a lot of the women in my club have babies, right? And all those children grew up right there on the hockey field where we all assist in babysitting. And so that is the environment when it comes from a club perspective. So when it goes to the national level with a national team, they need to recognize it's the same thing they need to supply. And so all I can say is really zoning on your objective, on all that mission and vision statement and everything that you have articulated and put pen to paper. You have to sit down and understand how I'm going to achieve those by supporting my art. And that's really what I will have to say about this scenario. I mean, each club and each sport may have different needs and nuances as it relates to training with a high performance athlete. But again, that's it. The NGBOs, when it comes to regular league where you have clubs and stuff, the clubs step up and they do what they have to do. So when it comes to motherhood and taking care of children or creating a space that is safe for a national team athlete to be able to have to know that when I come to practice, my baby will be taken care of and I can perform and then come back. That's important. So I would say, really, adhere to the thing that you put pen to paper to. Right?
Yeah, thank you for that.
That's my...
Okay, cool. Anis, you've worked with Safe Sport. You've looked at that area. And I want to turn it to you to really talk about that, and also within the context of the work that the NGBs and the sporting bodies, ought to be involved in, or are involved in already.
So I think we have to understand the framework of the NGBs and understand how much we're asking of them. Because the reality is that most of the NGBs, if not all, are shells. And when I say shells, it's because they don't have an operational staff. They have board of directors and they have the clubs. So there's a middle management missing to really roll out programs and roll out these things.
That's true.
And we have a society where sport is volunteer, but operational staff cannot be volunteer. It demands professionalism. Our expectations of the NSOs and NGBs are professional, and the framework that they're currently operating in isn't. So I think our expectations are unrealistic, to be honest. And I think in understanding that it's unrealistic, understanding that UE and UTT and all these open campuses are churning out graduates that are unemployed or employed in different sectors is an injustice to persons who have selected sport as their bread and butter to ask them to volunteer. It's absolutely insane. You don't ask a dentist to volunteer in dentistry. And I'm truly passionate about this part, right? Because that impacts. No, it impacts. I mean, because I am a young mother, and I already tell in my head, my daughter cannot come and tell me she wants to do sports because it's so challenging for me as a mom in the field. If you understand, it's challenging.
Yeah.
So how do we create the structure that facilitates employment in sports so that it could create the expectation that we have or meet the expectation that we have? You understand? There's no professional outlet in sports at the moment. We're working hard, we're educating, we're hoping people are entrepreneurial and create jobs and these things. But the reality is that we have a high expectation of these NSOs who don't have the staffing to roll out, and therefore we sit and, as Shirlan said, talk.
Yeah.
But we have to take the action, as Shirlan said, to create the structures for employment for students and graduates and people who are truly passionate about seeing sport thrive as an industry in Trinidad and Tobago, and then let that spill over to the Caribbean. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that I, having, spent more and more time as a parent involved with a child in a sport, and also, just being a little more exposed, is that you realize that a lot of our athletes whom we glorify and who we love and, who we continue to celebrate, when you look at their backstory in terms of how they got there, and I mean, there are those whose family can afford, and there are those who unfortunately don't have that reality. And as you say, Quanice, that is just the 1%. We haven't even scratched the surface of those who can still perform at an admirable level, may not necessarily reach gold level or gold medal level, but they still have that capability and can still achieve. And then you connect that to what Shirlan and Rhonda have been pointing to, and Kelsey, in terms of developing professionals in the sport, not necessarily at the athlete level. And you're creating this so that we can create an ecosystem that would allow us to, again, regenerate and, and the cycle continues. And I think a lot of what you are pointing to here speaks to the question of creating that cycle, so that we we have the administrators, we have the coaches who can support the athletes, and then the athletes in turn and their family, and it continues like that. And I think sometimes we're not quite there yet in terms of that, in terms of the smooth running of that cycle, and it goes back to that whole question of that cultural and that mindset. Having said all of that, and maybe Rhonda, I'll turn to you. We talked about some of the concrete important things that we do need to focus on. From your perspective, as someone working with an elite athlete, what are some of the key needs that you could also add to this conversation?
I think Shirlan and Quanice touched on a lot of the issues, real issues that, being in the sporting industry, it's something that needs to be addressed critically. I also agree with Quanice when she said that we make unrealistic gestures towards these NGBs in trying to get them to do more when they just have that skeleton, of staff where they don't have much people to actually fit in and to assist. Now, one thing we have to remember too, even though the universities are sending out persons and qualifying persons in the field of sport, volunteerism is very, very important. It is critical in the sense that it is something that should not be extended for a long period of time from persons who are qualified in the field. If the NGBs and the persons who are in charge of the various sporting organizations allow more women to get into the decision making roles in these NGBs rather than just providing administrative support, then they would be able to understand how important it is for us to have a system in place where we rotate these qualified graduates, get them streamlined into the system, show them certain things, yes, but also allow them to let go of their expertise and show us who are in these positions how to do things in this new age, how to get sports moving, how to get women involved, how to get girls involved, how to train coaches, how to do specific things to meet the needs of specific athletes and groups, then that shifting of the policy would help to rejuvenate the NGBs. We have to allow these graduates out and to participate and to, you see, it's a lot of fight down in sport in this country with regards to women being involved. If it is that you're in an administrative role, but they don't want you to come in and make the decisions because you're a woman, what you know, or you don't have the knowledge or you don't have the experience. That is not being feminist, but just trying to show how important for the persons who are on the ground, who have the knowledge and the experience. They are the ones that need to get in there to enforce that change. And how can we do that? We have to give them the opportunity. We let students come out and say, okay, come and work with us for a 3-month period, volunteer time. But after that time, we need to start putting things in place to get you into the system, for you to use your expertise to help us make that change. It's the older heads and the persons who are in these NGBs that are far gone, that don't want to include the millennials to get that change going then. Because you know what, if they come out of university and come into my NGB, they come in to take my job or they come in to take my position. They are threatened by a lot of these graduates that are coming out with the new age information because they are so set in their ways in terms of how they manage these organizations. They don't want newness. They don't want any change, or they don't want anybody coming with their, now time knowledge, so to speak, to come and tell me what to do. I have been here for years. So I am in agreement with what Shirley and Fanny said. It's totally
Rhonda, passionate.
Yeah.
No, it really, because you see, the thing is with this thing, right? Being involved, I volunteer with handball. I don't get paid to do anything in handball. I volunteer with the association, and we never had a female team until I decided to volunteer with the association, and trying to push and get women on board to compete and to look and to share it with other women. And these women have been excelling and they have been doing extremely well, and they have aided in helping to form policy procedures with regards to shifting the cultural mindset of the NGO itself. So yeah, I mean, as Shirley said, we talk, but then nothing is done, and we give this information, we provide all of this expertise, and then what happens next? So following through, really understanding that we need the UTT students that graduate, we need the UE students that graduate, we need these professionals that are being trained to come out and help us to do better, so that we can create a better industry and a better atmosphere for sport in the country.
I like your passion, Rhonda, around that. I think we all, I'm seeing it on the faces, and I know I'm even seeing some of the comments on Facebook. There is an appreciation and understanding, a real understanding of what some of these issues are and what we are uncovering here. And I think that, as we talk about moving from conversation, moving from talking about it to doing something about it and acting on it, I think I want to really commend the ministry for having these panels and for opening up these conversations, so that it's not just a conversation by sport people for sport people, but it's a very public discussion as well, where everyone can participate and share their experiences. I think that is also critical as we really try to address some of these issues. I want in the few remaining have, it is never enough time, but I really do. I want us to be able to kind of tie a bow around this conversation, as they say in certain groups. I want to turn it over to you guys just to give you an opportunity for some closing comments and thoughts. I suspect I know what you are already going to say, but that's okay. I think it bears a lot of what we've said bears repeating. What I would ask you to do is, as you wrap up, maybe leave us with one concrete action or concept that we do need to take into consideration if we are really going to foster a cultural shift. And Kelsey, I'll start with you again. Let me turn it to you, and then we'll make the rounds.
So for me, as Rhonda said, you can volunteer, but there's a limit to how much you can volunteer if you don't have the necessary knowledge how to do it. So for me, I went in and I'm in the process of getting some of my other certification for coaching, and I want to stress to everyone else out there, even women, not because you did something mean you can't teach it. And if you have the intention of being a part of the change, just like Shirlan says, more action. We have to go out and we have to take the courses. TTOC is being really good at offering courses, and I have benefited so much from those, right? And I want girls and women to know out there that we can do it all. We were built to do it all, right? And if we continue on this with this mindset, we would achieve, things. We could achieve anything. But girls and women, we weren't built to sit in the corner. We can do it all. And
that's right. That's
my wrapping up statement. Yeah.
I 100%, you'll get no argument from me on that. I have to tell you, Shirlan.
Yes,
one thing, Shirlan, just one thing.
No, but you know what? I mean, after Quinice and Rhonda spoke and mentioned the expectation from the NGBs. Now, the NGBs are made up of members from clubs. So we are a part of the NGB. So the expectation should be high. And I will close on because from an education, from being in academics, I will close off on what Quanice said. I mean, not Quanice, what Rhonda just alluded to. And understanding the professionals and young people coming out with degrees and stuff and saying, okay, that they cannot volunteer. At this point in time, this is the environment that we work in, and we need our sports management majors. This is my closing, to volunteer. You need to get yourself involved in sport. You have to change the face of sport. So although you may be looking for a job, I mean, most of the administrators in sports are volunteer, and in order for you to change it at this point in time, you need to get involved. So my closing remark is for students and for those young sports administrators who know what to do, why they're doing it. They need to get involved. And if it says volunteer at this point in time, give your little 15 minutes and your 10 minutes. So then you will be the president of the hockey fraternity. You will be the president for any one of those NSOs, and you will decide how we move forward and how we include women and how we improve sport and everything in between. We have to give of our time, regardless of where we are in this world. We have to give of our time. So that's my closing remark.
Give of your time. Thank you very much, Shirlan. Quanice, let's hear from you.
Yeah, so I think in order to assist the culture shift, we have to see it, we have to feel safe to do it, and we have to have a pathway in understanding how to continue to develop the develop women in sport and getting women more active in sport. And again, visibility is important. I love the Pink Ring campaign and the fact and the panel discussions because it's taking the conversation to the wider public, and it's no longer a study or a conversation between the academics or persons in the field of sports. It's becoming a broader subject area. I also think that leadership is important, and I believe that you don't need a title to lead. That is something that my dad left with me at 17 after some disappointment, and I would also want to leave that. Yes, I agree that you have to volunteer. I'm an avid volunteer. I've volunteered with the TTOC for many, many years. But there comes a point where that in order to change the culture, parents need to see that their child can survive in sport if they do decide to take up sport professionally or otherwise. So I think that is the conversation that would help change the culture. Because at the end of the day, the reason why we encourage encourage our children to seek education is so that they can have or sustain a very good life for themselves. That's why you send your child to university. So I think in understanding that as part of our culture, that we can't ignore that sport at this point in time isn't very viable for someone who very viable. So I think in a nutshell, that would be it.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I think, from where you are coming from where Sherlyn is coming from, volunteer, yes, but there's also the reality of having to exist professionally and economically. And I think the two are not mutually exclusively. Certainly, in fact, all of you are examples of that. So it's really finding that balance. And I appreciate the way that you all have been able to contextualize that. Rhonda, Miss Passion.
In closing, I would just like to say this. Let us, as coaches, administrators, athletes, persons involved in sport at the varying levels, let us provide and create an inclusive environment for women and girls in sport. How do we do this? We do this through 1, education, 2, empowerment, and 3, encouragement. They all go hand in hand. If we educate and we share knowledge, we can have a better understanding of how sport can change and transform the lives of women. By doing that, we have created an environment for empowerment. Let us empower, let us push, let us motivate, let us support our girls. And through that, the encouragement will be seamlessly easy. It will be such a nice transition where all three can come together. And it is not all, but it is something that we can use to help to really foster that shift and let people understand that women and girls have the right to participate, have the right to play. We have the right to be here and the right to take up any amount of challenges and space as anybody sees it fit. So that's just my closing.
Yes, definitely. As Kelsey said earlier, we were not built to be in a corner. And you don't have to have the title of leader. As Fanny said, you don't have to have a leader title to lead. So I think, ladies, thank you very much. Quanice, John,
You're welcome.
Rhonda Clark, Golden, Kelsey, Toussaint Reed, Sherlyn Cabrales. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for really having, we really had a great conversation. I appreciated everything that you had to say. I think our viewers, our listeners, we're streaming live on Facebook on the ministry's page, and I think that they would have got a lot of food for thought. Whether you're an athlete, you're a parent, you're an administrator, you're a coach, you're someone just interested, you're an avid sport watcher, you're a spectator like myself sometimes, you're a weekend warrior. These are some very critical issues that are important for us as a society, as a growing society, to understand how do we treat with our girls and our women in the area of sport. How do we build a better society? The minister spoke to the issues of inclusion, the issues of development, the issues of participation throughout a child's, throughout the life of a young girl. I think these are very important and critical issues, and I'd really like to thank the ministry as well, the Ministry of Sport and Community Development, for giving us this platform for conversation. They have been supported by some very key sponsors, and I think it really would be remiss of me if I weren't to mention Gatorade, Playtex, and Ocean Spray at this point, for continuing to travel with us in the Pink Rain campaign, throughout the Pink Rain campaign and this panel. So as I wrap it, let me express my thanks once again. This is just the second in our series of discussions. Do look out for our next discussion in June. We gave you all a bit of a bonus in May, as we had two, but look out for our next conversation in June. My name is Nicole Westfield, ladies and gentlemen, everyone watching, and this has been our You Go Girl panel discussion put on by the Ministry of Sport and Community Development. Thank you very much, and have a lovely afternoon. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Very finished.